In a small village in Malawi, the wind blew over dry fields, the rain stopped, the crops died, and hunger came. But one boy refused to give up. He had no money, no electricity, no magic, only an idea and a dream to make the wind work for his people. This is the true story of William Kamkwamba, the boy who harnessed the wind. Chapter 1. The Dying Land. The sun was cruel that year, hot, unforgiving. It burned the ground day after day. In the small village of Wimba, Malawi, the earth had stopped breathing. The fields were empty, the maize gone, the rivers dry, and the people hungry. Every morning, William Kamkwamba walked through dust instead of grass. He watched cows search for water. He watched men dig dry wells. He watched his mother look at an empty cooking pot. He was only 14, but he could see fear in every face. Fear of tomorrow. Fear of dying. The wind still blew across the plain, soft and endless. But the wind could not fill a stomach. It could only move dust and whisper. Maybe, William thought, the wind can do more. At night, his father sat silent by the fire, a proud farmer, a man who believed in the land. Now, his strong hands shook. He could not feed his family. God will send the rain, he said quietly. William wanted to believe, but the sky stayed empty. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Then came hunger. People ate once a day, sometimes less. Children grew thin. Mothers cried at night. One morning, William saw his friend drop at school. He had not eaten. The teacher stopped the lesson. They carried the boy home. Soon, school was closed. There was no food for students, no money for books, no hope for lessons. William walked home, his stomach empty, his heart heavy. He passed the same dead trees, the same tired faces, but inside him, something refused to die. He still wanted to learn, to understand, to find a way. He remembered the small library near the school, just a few shelves filled with old, used books. He decided to go there, even if no one asked him to. The librarian looked surprised. "You again?" she said. "Yes," William answered. "I just want to read." He could not read English well, but he tried, page by page, word by word. He found a book one day. Its title was strange, Using Energy. The pictures showed machines, wheels, wires, windmills. He didn't understand all the words, but the images spoke to him. Wind, blades, light, power. He traced the picture with his finger. "A windmill," he whispered. "It makes electricity from the wind." Something clicked inside his mind. He felt a spark, small, but real. If the wind could make power, maybe it could help his village. He ran home, the book under his arm. His mother smiled weakly. "What did you find today, William?" He smiled back. "Hope," he said softly. That night, as the wind moved through the dark fields, William lay awake. He listened. He imagined big arms turning in the air. He saw light in his house. He saw water coming from a pump. He saw life returning. Outside, The land was dying. But inside, one boy, something was being born. An idea. An idea that would change everything. Chapter 2. A Boy with Questions. William Kamkwamba could not stop thinking, not about food, not about rain, but about wind. The book had opened his mind. Each picture whispered secrets. Each page showed something possible. He wanted to know more. How could the wind make power? How could wires bring light? How could a boy build a windmill? At home, his father looked tired. The farm gave nothing. The family ate once a day. Money was gone. Even candles were a luxury. "William," his mother said, "you must stop going to that library. You need to help your father." He nodded. But deep inside, he could not stop. He was hungry. Not for food, but for answers. So, after working in the field, he still went to the library. He sat on the cold floor, with the book Using Energy open in his lap. He studied the drawings again and again. He didn't know every word, but he saw meaning in the shapes. Blades, axle, wire, battery. He drew pictures in the dust with a stick. He made small models using grass and wood. Sometimes they fell apart, but he tried again. And again. Other boys laughed. "What are you doing, William?" "Making toys?" He smiled. "No," he said. "I'm learning how to make the wind work." They laughed louder. "Ha! You can't eat wind!" But he just looked at the sky and whispered, "Maybe one day we will." At night, he watched the lamps of the rich families in the town nearby. Their houses glowed with yellow light. The rest of the village was dark. He wanted that light, not for himself, but for everyone. He began asking questions. How does a radio work? Why does the bicycle light shine when I pedal? What is electricity really? No one had answers. Even his teachers didn't know much. Science books were few, but his curiosity grew stronger. He started to take old radios apart. He studied the wires. He looked at the small round magnets. He wondered, could these help me make electricity? His parents worried. "You'll break everything," his mother said. But William smiled. To learn, sometimes you must break things first. One day, he saw an old bicycle near a pile of junk. It was broken, rusty, but when he touched the wheel, it turned smoothly. The idea flashed again, like light. If the wheel can turn, he thought, and if I connect it to wires, maybe I can turn the wind into motion, and motion into power. He didn't tell anyone yet. They already thought he was crazy. But he knew what he needed: metal, wire, blades, a dream. So he started visiting the local junkyard, a place filled with broken machines and forgotten hopes. He looked for anything he could use: a fan blade, a tractor part, an old dynamo. The junkyard men shouted, "Hey, boy! What are you doing here?" "Looking for parts," William answered. They laughed, but let him search. Each piece he found felt like treasure. Each screw, each bolt, each wire, a step closer to his dream. When he came home, his sisters laughed. "What is all this trash?" He smiled again. "One day," he said, "this trash will bring light." The nights grew darker, the hunger deeper, but William's fire burned brighter. He no longer saw the world as broken. He saw it as full of pieces, pieces that could fit together if someone just tried. And he was that someone. A boy with questions, a boy with courage, a boy with a dream made of wind. Chapter 3. The library that changed everything. The library was small, only 3 wooden shelves, a few broken chairs, and silence. But for William, it was a kingdom of dreams. He came there almost every day, sometimes barefoot, sometimes hungry, but always curious. The librarian, Miss Edith, smiled when she saw him. "You again, William?" "Yes," he said softly. "I want to learn about windmills." She laughed kindly. "You and your wind." Then she handed him the same book, Using Energy. The pages were old, some corners torn, but to William each line was gold. He traced the drawings with his fingers, windmill blades, water pumps, electric wires, light bulbs glowing. He imagined them all moving together, like a secret dance of power. There were words he didn't know. Generator, current, rotor. So he pointed at each one and asked, "What does this mean?" Miss Edith didn't always know, but she helped him find other books, old science textbooks, books no one touched anymore. He read them slowly. He translated English words into Chichewa, his local language. He filled a notebook with sketches and notes. He built his own dictionary. Soon, he understood how energy flowed, from wind to motion, from motion to light. He saw the connection between nature and science. One afternoon, he stood outside the library, feeling the wind on his face. He closed his eyes. The same air that moved the trees could move his blades. The same invisible force could bring life. He ran home, his notebook tight in his hand. He showed his father the drawings. "Look, Papa," he said, "I can build this. It can bring light." His father looked confused. "You? Build a machine? From what?" "From things I can find," William said with hope. "The wind is free. We just have to use it." But his father shook his head. "My son, we need food, not toys." Then he walked away. William stood silent. The words hurt, but his dream was stronger than pain. He began working behind the house, in the small shed. He used an old bicycle frame, pieces of metal, and broken radio parts. He used his sister's blue bottle as a cover for the dynamo. He tied things with wire, rope, and faith. The village boys gathered to watch. They laughed, as always. "William, what are you building?" He smiled. "A windmill." They pointed and laughed harder. "A windmill? For what? For the chickens?" He just kept working, turning screws, tightening bolts, believing. He didn't have tools. He didn't have money. But he had imagination and patience. When something broke, he fixed it. When something failed, he tried again. Miss Edith sometimes visited. "You're really doing it?" she said softly. He nodded. "The book showed me how. The rest is just trying." The villagers called him Madman. They said, "The windmill boy has lost his mind." But William didn't care. Because when he looked at the book, he saw the future. A future with light, with water, with hope. And that small library, with its dusty shelves and quiet corners, had become the place where his dream began to live. Chapter 4. Junkyard of Hope. The junkyard was not a place for dreams. It was a place for rust, for broken bicycles, dead radios, and forgotten machines. But for William Kamkwamba, it was a gold mine. Every morning, he walked there with a small bag and big eyes. The sun burned hot. The ground was sharp with metal and glass. Flies buzzed around. The smell of oil and dust filled the air. But William didn't care. He was on a mission. He looked at the piles of junk, mountains of iron, wires, and wheels. To others, it was garbage. To him, it was possibility. He climbed carefully, searching for something that could move. A small fan blade, a tractor spring, a bicycle wheel, an old dynamo. Each piece made his heart race. He didn't know exactly how it would all fit together, but he trusted the picture in his mind. One of the men in the yard shouted, "Hey, boy!" "You again?" William smiled. "Yes, I need parts for my windmill." The man laughed. "You'll make wind dance for you, eh?" "Maybe," William said. "One day it will." He paid with what little he had, a few coins, sometimes maize flour. And when he had nothing, he traded smiles and promises. Piece by piece, he carried his treasure home, wires hanging from his pocket, metal shining under the sun. Villagers stared. "Look at the windmill boy," they said. "He's lost his head." But William didn't listen. He built his first frame behind the house. It looked strange, like a skeleton of wood and metal. His sisters laughed. "William, it's ugly." "Maybe," he said, "but it will work." He worked with old tools, a bent hammer, a dull knife, a screwdriver missing its handle. But his hands learned. His mind guided them. He tied the bicycle wheel to a wooden pole. He used plastic pipes as blades. He fixed them at an angle, just like in the picture from the book. It was hard. Sometimes the wind blew too strong and broke the blades. Sometimes nothing turned at all. He felt angry, tired, hopeless, but he refused to stop. When something failed, he whispered to himself, "Every problem has a solution. I just need to find it." One evening, his father came to see. He stood for a while, watching his son tighten wires under the fading light. Then he asked quietly, "Will this really help us, William?" William looked up, his face shining with sweat and dust. "Yes, Papa," he said. "If I can make the wind turn these blades, I can make light." His father didn't answer. He just nodded slowly and walked away. That small nod meant more to William than any words. It was permission. It was hope. Days passed. The machine grew taller. The villagers came to watch. Children pointed. Women shook their heads. Men laughed. But William only saw the future. He saw light in the darkness. He saw his mother cooking under a lamp. He saw his sisters studying at night. He saw a world that worked because of the wind. When he looked at his pile of junk, he didn't see trash. He saw dreams waiting to be born. And in that dusty junkyard, under the African sun, a miracle was quietly taking shape. Chapter 5. The first blades turn. The day was quiet. Too quiet. The air was dry, the sky pale and wide. The windmill stood tall, thin, strange, almost alive. William Kamkwamba looked up at it. His heart beat fast. For weeks, he had built it piece by piece, from old bicycle parts, from plastic and wire, from hope. Now it was ready. At least, he hoped it was. The villagers came again, some curious, some laughing. They gathered in a circle, whispering, "Look at that thing! It will fall! Maybe it will fly away." William's father stood at the back, silent, watching. William held the tail of his windmill. He looked at the sky. The air was still. No wind, no movement. He waited. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then, a soft sound. A whisper in the trees. The wind had come. He stepped back. Slowly. The blades moved. Once, then again. His heart jumped. He smiled. The blades turned faster. The bicycle wheel began to spin. The chain moved. The dynamo buzzed faintly. It was working. It was really working. The crowd gasped. Children shouted. Even the men who laughed before were silent now. The sound grew louder. The blades danced with the wind. And for the first time, a small bulb in William's hand began to glow. Just a little, but enough. Light. Real light. Made by the wind. William shouted with joy. He ran to his father. "Papa! Look!" His father stared at the glowing bulb. Then he looked at his son, eyes wide with pride. "You did it," he whispered. "You made the wind work for us." William smiled. Tears filled his eyes. "Yes, Papa. The wind has power. We just had to believe." That night, the story spread. William made light. The boy made electricity. People came from nearby villages to see it. They touched the bulb, amazed. They watched the blades spin above his roof. The laughter turned to wonder. The doubt turned to respect. But for William, it was only the beginning. He wanted more. He wanted to bring light to every house. He wanted to pump water for the farms. He wanted to end hunger. He worked again the next day. He added stronger blades. He built a small tower from wood poles. He connected the wires to more bulbs. He tested, failed, fixed, and tested again. Each time the wind blew, he felt a thrill. Each turn of the blades was a promise. That change was possible. His mother cooked under the soft light of a bulb that night. His sisters read their school books for the first time after dark. The house was glowing, alive, and outside, the windmill kept spinning, singing a new song over the fields of Malawi. The land was still poor. The rain still hadn't come, but hope had returned. Because one boy with one book and one dream had turned the invisible wind into power. Chapter 6. The Village Laughs. The windmill stood tall now. It turned with pride. Its blades sang softly in the wind. William Kamkwamba's dream had come alive. But not everyone believed. Not everyone understood. At first, the villagers came to watch. They pointed. They whispered. Some clapped their hands in wonder. Others shook their heads. "Maybe it's witchcraft," one woman said. "How can a boy make light from the sky?" Old men frowned. "This is not natural," they muttered. "Only God gives light." The laughter began again, but this time it felt different. It was sharper, crueler. They called him the Mad Wind Boy. Children teased him in the street. They threw stones at his tower. "Make the wind blow, crazy boy," they shouted. William said nothing. He just smiled, tired but proud, because he knew what they didn't. He had seen the light with his own eyes. Still, it hurt. He was young. He wanted people to understand, not to mock. At night, when the windmill turned and the light glowed in his home, he sat outside alone. He watched the stars. He whispered to the wind, "Why do they laugh?" "I only want to help." The wind answered with a soft sigh. It kept turning the blades, steady and faithful. One evening, the chief of the village came. He looked serious. He had heard many rumors. Some said William had made a deal with spirits. Others said his machine would bring bad luck. "William," the chief said, "what is this thing you have built?" "It's a windmill, sir," William explained. "It makes electricity. It brings light." The chief frowned. "Electricity? From the air?" William nodded. "Yes, the book showed me how. I just followed the pictures." The chief looked at the spinning blades. Then he looked at the small bulb glowing near the window. He stepped closer, touched it, and his eyes widened. "It's warm," he whispered. "And real." He turned to the others. "This boy," he said, "has brought the wind to life. Don't laugh, learn." From that day, the laughter began to fade, slowly. Quietly. People started to visit, not to mock, but to ask, "How does it work? Can it charge a phone? Can it help my house too?" William smiled again, this time with joy. He showed them the wires, the dynamo, the turning blades. He spoke simply, humbly. He wanted them to believe, not in him, but in possibility. Soon, the school teacher came. He had heard about the light. He wanted to see it himself. When he did, he nodded with pride. "You were my student," he said, "and now you are my teacher." William blushed. He wasn't used to such words. He was just a boy who asked too many questions and refused to stop asking. But that night, he felt something new. Not just pride, responsibility. If his windmill could bring light to one house, maybe it could bring hope to all of them. He began dreaming again. This time, bigger. He wanted to pump water from the ground, to make the fields green again, to fight hunger with the same wind that once blew over dry land. The laughter of the village had once felt heavy. Now it became music. Because when the wind turned, it didn't just move blades, it moved hearts. And in that small village in Malawi, the boy they once called crazy was starting to look like a genius. Chapter 7. The Power of the Wind. The windmill was no longer just a dream. It was alive, turning every day above William's home, turning hope into light. But William wanted more. Light was not enough. His people needed water. The land was still dry. The farms were dying. Children still walked long distances to find muddy water, and the hunger never truly left. William looked at the spinning blades and thought, if the wind can make light, maybe it can pull water from the ground. He went back to his notebook. He drew new plans, pipes, pumps, water flowing up, not down. He studied old books again. He asked everyone about machines, but few people understood. So he decided to learn by doing, just like before. He returned to the junkyard. The men laughed again. Back for more garbage, Wind Boy? He grinned. Yes. This time I want to make it rain. He searched for pipes, plastic tubes, and an old water pump. He found a rusted one full of holes. But to William, even broken things could be reborn. He carried it home on his shoulder, heavy and dirty. When he arrived, his father watched silently. You still believe this wind can help us? William nodded. I believe, Papa. The wind has never failed me. Together, they dug near the well. They set the pipes deep into the ground. William worked for hours, fixing, tightening, connecting. When it was ready, he attached the pump to the windmill. The blades started to turn. Slowly, then faster. He waited. Nothing happened. He fixed it again. Still nothing. He changed the angle. He prayed silently. Then, a sound, a gurgle, a deep whisper from the earth. Water. Cold, clear water began to rise through the pipe. A small stream at first, then stronger. William shouted, "It's working!" His father dropped his shovel and ran. His mother cried with joy. The children danced barefoot around the flowing water. The village gathered again. This time, there was no laughter. Only silence and wonder. They touched the cool water with trembling hands. Look, someone said, the wind gives us life. For the first time in many seasons, the field near William's home turned green again. The maize grew tall. The goats drank freely. The smell of dust was replaced by the scent of wet earth. William stood there, smiling, watching the blades spin in the wind. He felt the wind on his face, gentle, kind, powerful. It carried something invisible, yet real. It carried hope. News spread quickly, from one village to another, from one town to the next. People came from far away to see the boy who made the wind bring water. Some brought notebooks, some brought cameras. All wanted to know how he did it. He told them the truth. I just read a book. I used what I had, and I never stopped trying. They couldn't believe it. A boy who left school because he couldn't pay. A boy who learned from a library. A boy who turned junk into a miracle. That night, under the stars, William sat beside the pump. He listened to the soft hum of his windmill and the gentle flow of water. He closed his eyes. The world was quiet again, not from despair, but from peace. The wind had become his friend, his teacher, his power. And in that moment, William understood something deep. Even the poorest place on earth can hold great energy if someone dares to believe. Chapter 8. From Darkness to Light. The windmill turned through the day, through the night, through the changing seasons. Its blades cut the air like a song of hope, a song of life. The small house of William Kamkwamba was no longer dark. At night, a soft yellow glow filled the room. The light was gentle but powerful, because it came from dreams. His sisters studied under it. His mother cooked with it. And his father, once silent and worried, now smiled again. The windmill brought more than light. It brought dignity. It brought faith back to the village. Neighbors came every evening. They wanted to see the miracle with their own eyes. They wanted to touch the wires, to feel the wind, to believe. "William," one man said, "you gave us light. What will you do next?" William smiled softly. "I'll give us a future." But soon the story began to travel farther than he ever imagined. A teacher told another teacher. A visitor told a journalist. A journalist told the world. People started coming from towns far away, from Blantyre, from Lilongwe, even from other countries. They came with cameras, notebooks, microphones. They asked, "How did you do it? Where did you study? Who taught you science?" William answered simply, "I learned from a book and from the wind." They were amazed. A boy who once had nothing, no school, no electricity, no money, had built power from trash. Soon, his story reached the radio, then the newspapers, then the internet. People around the world began to speak his name. In Malawi, the government heard about him too. One day, a big car arrived at his village. A man in a suit stepped out. He said, "William Kamkwamba, you are invited to speak at a conference. You will tell people your story." William froze. Him speak in English to important people? He felt afraid. But then he looked at his windmill, spinning gently in the background, and he smiled. "The wind carried my voice once," he whispered. "Maybe it can carry it again." He traveled to the city for the first time. Tall buildings, bright lights, people in clean clothes. He felt small, but not weak. When he stood on stage, his hands shook. He took a breath. He remembered the dust, the hunger, the junkyard, the book. Then he said, "My name is William Kamkwamba. I built a windmill to bring light and water to my village." The room went silent. Then applause, loud, long. People stood. Some cried, some shouted his name. In that moment, William understood. His windmill had carried him from darkness to light, not only in his home, but in his life. He was no longer just a village boy. He was a symbol, a reminder that knowledge is power and hope is real. After the speech, men and women came to him. They offered scholarships. They offered to help his village. They wanted to build more windmills. When William returned home, the whole village celebrated. They danced around the windmill, singing songs of joy. The same people who once laughed at him now called him a hero. But William smiled humbly. He looked up at the sky and said, "It was never about me. It was about us, about believing in something bigger." That night, under the soft light of his windmill, William sat quietly. The stars above were bright. The air was cool. The wind was steady. He whispered, "Thank you, my friend. Thank you for never leaving me." And the wind, faithful as ever, whispered back through the blades, "You believed." That was enough. Chapter 9. The World Listens. The windmill that once turned above a quiet village in Malawi was now turning the hearts of people around the world. William Kamkwamba's story had crossed oceans. It was told on the radio. It appeared in newspapers. It spread across the internet. People everywhere wanted to meet the boy who made the wind dance. Invitations began to arrive. Letters, emails, phone calls from faraway countries. "Come and speak in America," one message said. "Share your story," another wrote. William could hardly believe it. He had never even been on an airplane. He didn't have a passport. He barely spoke English well. But once again, he said yes. Because he had learned one thing. When the wind calls, you must listen. When he arrived in America, everything felt unreal. The streets were wide. The buildings reached the sky. At night, lights shone brighter than stars. He remembered the dark nights in his village, the hunger, the silence. And now, here he was, surrounded by power everywhere. People welcomed him with smiles. "William, you are amazing," they said. He smiled shyly. "I'm just a boy who read a book," he answered. Then came the big moment. He was invited to a famous stage, a TED conference, where inventors and dreamers spoke to the world. William stood there, nervous. So many faces, so many lights. He took a deep breath. He remembered his windmill turning under the African sun. He remembered his mother's smile, his father's pride. And then he began to speak. He told them about the drought, the hunger, the small library, the junkyard, the book that changed his life. He spoke slowly, carefully. His English was not perfect, but his story was pure, and the world listened. When he finished, there was silence, then thunderous applause. People stood up. Some wiped tears. Others shouted, "Bravo! Bravo!" For the first time, William realized his dream was bigger than himself. It was not only about light or water, it was about belief. He said softly, "If you try, and if you never give up, you can do anything." Those words reached millions. Students, teachers, engineers, dreamers. They all listened. They shared his message. Use what you have. Do what you can. Believe in yourself. After that day, William's life changed again. He met scientists. He met presidents. He went to study abroad. He built more machines, not just for himself, but for his people. He helped schools get power. He worked to bring clean water to villages. He taught others how to make their own windmills. And through it all, he never forgot where he came from. The dusty fields of Wimbe, the broken bicycle, the old library, the quiet wind. Sometimes reporters asked, "William, how did you do it?" He always smiled and said, "The wind taught me." The world had listened, but more importantly, the world had learned. That greatness can come from anywhere. That one small idea can change lives. That even the poorest boy can lift his nation with nothing but courage and the power of the wind. Chapter 10. The dream continues. The wind still blows over Malawi, soft, endless, free. It moves through the maize fields, over the dusty roads, past the old library where one boy once found a dream. That boy is now a man. His name, William Kamkwamba. But to the world he will always be, the boy who harnessed the wind. Years have passed since the first blades turned. His village has changed. The children go to school. The lamps glow at night. The wells are full again, and in every corner people still speak of that first spark. The light that came from the wind. William travels now. He speaks in schools, in conferences, in villages like his own. He tells them, "I was once just like you, hungry, lost, afraid. But I believed that even the smallest idea can grow strong if you feed it with courage." He helps young students build windmills. He teaches them about science. He shows them that learning is a kind of magic, not from books alone, but from curiosity, from imagination, from trying. Wherever he goes, people listen. Not because he is rich, not because he is famous, but because his story is real. He reminds the world that hope is not something you wait for. It's something you build. One evening, William returned to his village. He stood again before the same tower, the same blades still turning in the golden light. It was smaller now than he remembered, but to him, it was still beautiful. His father stood beside him, older, quieter, smiling. "Do you remember, William," he said, "when we thought this thing would never work?" William nodded. "Yes, Papa. But the wind believed in me before anyone else did." They both laughed softly. The wind passed between them, gentle and kind, like an old friend saying hello. William looked out over the land. He saw fields alive again. He heard children laughing. He felt peace. Then he whispered, "This is what faith looks like." He closed his eyes and thought of that hungry boy who once sat on the library floor, who once read an old torn book called Using Energy, who once dared to dream that wind could bring life. That boy never really disappeared. He still lives in every child who dares to believe, in every hand that builds, in every heart that hopes. Today, William's windmills stand across Malawi. They bring water, light, and learning. They carry a message stronger than any storm. You don't need magic to change the world. You just need an idea, and the courage to follow it. The sun sets behind the hills. The windmill turns slowly, glowing under the last light of day, and the voice of the wind whispers across the land, "Keep dreaming, William." And so, the dream continues.